Welcome. I am Ezra May, President of the Australian Society of Polish Jews and their Descendants. Welcome to the 2025 ASPJ Oration. A particularly warm welcome to Acting Ambassador and Chargé d'Affaires of the Polish Embassy, Mr. Marcin Kawałowski. We are greatly honoured by your presence here this evening and deeply appreciate that you accepted to deliver this year's ASPJ Oration. Also welcome to Beata Pakala, First Secretary of the Embassy, and we look forward to building as positive and productive relationship with you as we enjoyed with Mr. Lukasz Grabo, your prior First Secretary. Also welcome Mr. Piotr Brzegowski, Consul General of Poland, based in Sydney, Andrzej Jarzyński, the Honorary Consul in Victoria, President Elizabeth Ječić and members of the PCCV, our good friends, and it was a real pleasure to attend the Polish Festival at Federation Square yesterday, where despite the intermittent rain, a large crowd enjoyed Polish song, dance, food, entertainment, community and culture. Also welcome Hedy Goldberg, Honorary Consul of Botswana, Faye Haskin Dubrovnik from the neighbouring Victoria, Alexander Dungul of APA, and Ojciec Rostovski, Father Rostovski. State Members of Parliament, Natalie Suleiman of St Albans and David Southwick of Caulfield, send their apologies, as this week is a parliamentary sitting week and they're required to be in Spring Street. Apologies and best wishes also from Philip Zajac, President of the Jewish Community Council of Victoria, and Dr. Brianne Fallon, the newly appointed CEO of the Melbourne Holocaust Museum. Both have other commitments tonight. Distinguished guests, supporters and friends, the ASPJ statement of purpose is to preserve and promote the historical and cultural heritage of Jewish life in Poland and to foster understanding between current and future generations of Polish and Jewish communities. We advance this mission through three core areas: hosting events and webinars, engagement with our local Polish community, and activities on a formal diplomatic and governmental level. One example is only yesterday, where in New South Wales, where the ASPJ is rapidly expanding its footprint, we co-hosted with the Australian Jewish Historical Society an in-person lecture by visiting Professor Jan Gronsky from New York on developments in AI tools for Jewish genealogy. This is a technology that's quite interesting lecture where it takes the handwritten, often in Polish and cursive script, and an AI will be able to translate that and give you your family history. We've also hosted this year a two-part webinar series, Saved by Stalin, Polish Jews in the Soviet Union and the post-war return to Poland, presented by New South Wales ASPJ Board member Rita Nash, and other webinars, including from Eva Savicka and Pavel Savicki of the Memories of Treblinka Foundation, and also with Dr. Stephen Rees of the Matseva Foundation. Recordings of these and many other events, including last year's evening with Dr. Michal Trembach, Director of the Jewish Historical Institute, where he presented on the archives collection of the JHI, the largest collection of records, documents, testimonies and memoirs of Polish Jews, including the famous Ringelblum archive from the Warsaw Ghetto, as well as the registration cards, including for my grandparents, of over 300,000 Polish Jews after World War II. All of these are on our website, as well as past editions of our biannual newsletter, Haynt, featuring a rich range of local and international articles. The ASPJ is entirely volunteer-run. We are motivated because we believe in our purpose and the value of what we do. I thank the board, those in attendance tonight, Izzy Marmur, Andrew Reifer, Lena Fishman, Peter Schnall and Eva Hossein, and in New South Wales, Estelle Roginski, Helene Amundsen, Rita Nash and Professor Lucy Tusker for all their dedication and commitment. In addition to the above, the two signature events that the ASPJ hosts are our Henry Slavik Award and our ASPJ Oration. The Slavik Award commemorates the outstanding Polish diplomat, politician and humanitarian, Henryk Slavik, who saved several thousand Jews between 1940 and 1944. Yet ultimately he himself was murdered by the Nazis in Mauthausen concentration camp. The Slavik Award is bestowed upon an individual or organisation who contributes to a greater understanding of the unique and dynamic contribution by the Polish Jewish community to the all-embracing Polish culture and ethos. Past awardees include author Arnold Zabel, the late Myron Havlik and the PCCV, Sue Hampel, the late Krzysztof Lanczewski, and Dr. Luke Brzegowski, amongst others. Previous presenters of our ASPJ Oration include Dariusz Popilia of People Not Numbers, and better known perhaps as a kayaking Olympian, 10-time Polish champion and multiple medalist at World and European Championships, and also Professor Dariusz Gola, the then director of Polin Museum of the History of Polish Jews. Tonight we are honoured that our 2025 ASPJ Oration is being presented by Mr. Marcin Kawałowski, Chargé d'Affaires and Acting Ambassador of the Republic of Poland. Since assuming the role of Acting Ambassador, and indeed prior, Marcin has always been a true friend of the ASPJ. It is always such a pleasure to partner with him and receive his guidance, friendship and support, always delivered in such a friendly, cooperative and cordial manner. In addition to presenting our oration, Acting Ambassador will also confer the prestigious Gold Cross of Merit on behalf of the President of the Republic of Poland to two past presidents of the ASPJ, Mr. Bernard Korbman and Mr. Izzy Marmur. I won't say much about Bernard and Izzy. I'll leave it to them to say what they want to say about themselves. It's much safer that way. But it is a great privilege and also a great challenge to say only a little. I said I wouldn't say much. I'm going to say little. There is plenty to say, and I thought I'd skip the obvious praise you all expect, so assume I said it, and I thought maybe I'll say some of the juicy bits. But that proved to be an even greater challenge, as no one has anything bad to say about Bernard or Izzy, or at least not to me. As many here would know, Bernard was the single most fundamental force behind the establishment and formation of the ASPJ. Indeed, for many people in the Jewish, Polish and wider general community, Bernard was and remains the embodiment of the ASPJ and the living example of its ideals. Following his teaching career, Bernard was Executive Director of the Jewish Holocaust Centre, making a profound contribution to the Melbourne Jewish and wider community. In the 1980s, Bernard was also Chairman of the World Federation of Polish Jews, the Australian chapter, a postal organisation that aimed to support Jewish survivors from Poland and preserve the heritage of Polish Jewry. After this World Federation lapsed in the early 2000s, Bernard established a new successor organisation, the Australian Society of Polish Jews and Their Descendants, in 2009, the ASPJ. Bernard is very much the founding father, inspiration and icon for the ASPJ, and in 2011 was awarded the Medal of Order of Australia, an OAM, for service to the community, particularly through the preservation of Jewish history. Personally, Bernard is, of course, all of that for me, plus more, as Bernard is entirely responsible for my involvement in and all the education, entertainment and meaning the ASPJ has provided me. At the end of my very first ASPJ event that I attended, despite never having met Bernard before, Bernard approached me, introduced himself, and then welcomed me on board. All before I had time to introduce myself back, or wriggle my arm free from the twist of putting on not too suddenly. Those familiar with Bernard's charismatic and captivating personality won't be surprised. Participating in a meeting, engaging in a discussion, or attending a function with Bernard is always a delight on so many levels. Every occasion I've learned something, laughed at something, but most importantly observe how he behaves. It is Bernard's ability to analyse a situation and respond with just the right calibration of tolerance, respect, forcefulness and conviction that are my greatest lessons. No issue or challenge is ever too difficult, and when required, Bernard displays the strength to remain true to his values and ideals. Bernard also has the enviable ability to effortlessly relate to all sorts of people, be they an elderly Holocaust survivor, visiting Polish parliamentarian, academic, or even a young third generation or fourth generation child exploring their heritage. Bernard has time for everyone and treats everyone with respect. So Bernard, thank you for establishing and everything you have contributed to the ASPJ. It is a great honour for me as current president to see you receive the Gold Cross of Merit. When Bernard was forming the ASPJ in 2009, it is no surprise at all that one of the first people he encouraged to join and approached was Izzy. With his deep contacts and personal connections within the Polish community, Izzy quickly became the unofficial ASPJ Liaison Community Officer, representing the ASPJ at many Polish community events, including Polish Independence Day, Katyn Memorial, and others. Izzy's great passion and enthusiasm for cooperating and strengthening ties with the Polish community has been instrumental to the relationship that we have formed today. This, of course, is made a little easier with Izzy's native, flawless, fluent Polish. Mówię dobrze po polsku, but not quite as good as Izzy. Tylko po polsku. Izzy is also the editor and driving force behind our flagship publication, Haynt. Twice a year, around Passover and Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year, Izzy produces a fantastic publication showcasing the ASPJ's activities, as well as articles relevant to Polish Jewish issues in Australia and Poland. Izzy's ability as a graphic artist also produces all our publicity material for our webinars and events. In 2021, Izzy was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia for service to the Jewish community and his work in strengthening Jewish-Polish relations. Acting Ambassador will speak further about the Gold Cross of Merit, but I'll just note that it is with full endorsement and great pride from the ASPJ that both Bernard and Izzy are being awarded this prestigious state declaration granted by the President of the Republic of Poland. After emerging from COVID, the past few years of international uncertainty and instability has given rise to troubling trends. Growing intolerance, resurgent nationalism, and the erosion of goodwill between communities has led to some very real events, particularly locally here in Caulfield, which, to understate it, are of a real concern. It would be easy for us to feel discouraged, but it's exactly times like this why the work we do at both the grassroots and diplomatic levels is so important. We provide an example of how cooperation, understanding, and shared heritage can bring communities together rather than drift apart. The challenge ahead for the ASPJ is to continue to further our mission. I'm confident, though, that based on the foundations built by Izzy and Bernard, and with the continued support and encouragement of the Polish community, our friends, and diplomatic corps, we are well placed to do so. So Mazel Tov Bernard and Cheryl, the family, and Izzy and Etienne family, on this richly deserved honour you're being presented with tonight. We look forward to many years working together and wish you and all your families plenty of good health, happiness and fulfilment. After the oration and presentation of the Gold Cross of Merit, we'll hear from Izzy and then Bernard in response. Then after some official photos, everyone is warmly invited to join us upstairs for light refreshments. Thank you once again, Acting Ambassador Mr. Marcin Kawałowski. We now very much look forward to hearing the 2025 ASPJ oration.
Thank you very much, Ezra. Good evening to everybody. Very interesting introduction, and I cannot hide that in the context of what you said, I will need to delete certain elements of my oration because I asked you for advice, which elements I should refer to in my speech, and you gave me very proper advice actually, so I decided to use these elements. And maybe to some extent I will repeat certain points because I think they're very important, and they are also very important from perspective of Polish government. So I think certain things need to be said, but of course I will try to skip out some elements for the sake of time. But first of all, again, good evening, and I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respect to the elders past, present and emerging. You saw the title of my speech on Melbourne and Polish-Jewish relations, and this is exactly what I would like to speak about tonight. I would like to provide you with my comments as diplomat here in Australia on Melbourne and on importance of Melbourne for Polish community and also for Jewish community, and also bring some elements related to history of Polish-Jewish relations, and also put it in broader context what's happening today, as it was done by Ezra earlier on. Let me start with stressing that my colleagues and myself are always very pleased to visit Melbourne. Not necessarily because of weather, because it's quite specific, I have to say, but also not only because of good coffee, Australian Open, Formula One, or great concerts which are being organized here in the city. We came here yesterday also to take part in a Polish festival at Federation Square, and for me it was third time as I did take part in this festival. Fascinating experience in the center of the city, promoting Poland in the best possible way. But also I and my colleagues from the embassy always use visits to Marmur and such opportunities to meet with our friends from ASPJ and also friends from Melbourne Holocaust Museum. When I'm in Melbourne, I also do my utmost to spend more time on these important, sensitive topics. So I pay special attention to what's happening on in the Melbourne Holocaust Museum. I try to visit new exhibitions presented there, always stirring, and if I may quote from the website, and amplifying the voices of Holocaust survivors, which are an essential catalyst for greater understanding and acceptance of difference, and serve to inspire a better future. Last time when I came to Marmur, I was accompanied by a bigger Polish team, and not only by colleagues from the embassy or colleagues from consulate, but I was here with representatives of Polish Museum, it's a Jewish museum in Warsaw, and Jewish Historical Institute, because we decided to cooperate together to launch the exhibition on the archives of the Warsaw Ghetto, which again it was mentioned by Ezra. So-called Ringelblum archives. You know the story pretty well, I assume. For me, it was a really fascinating exhibition presenting not only history and the complexity of history of Holocaust and Polish-Jewish relations, but it was a story about human courage, determination, and resilience. And I think this is what we need very much today. So I think it's a good introduction to stress again that Melbourne is a very special place for so many Poles living down under, and many of them are here today. On the one hand, the capital city of Victoria is home to the largest Polish community in Australia, and I hope, I'm looking at Piotr, our Consul General from Sydney, the number has not changed. On the other hand, Melbourne, and it's obvious, is also the main center of Jewish life in Australia. These two elements are very strongly related to my country as well, and this brings me to my second bigger point related to history, to history of Polish-Jewish relations, and also I would like to build a kind of link with what's happening right now around the world. So I'm sure you know much better than I do that Poland was home to the largest Jewish community in Europe at some point. In 1939, before the Second World War, 3.4 million Jews lived in Poland. It was more than in any other country in Europe. This was the result of 1,000 years of a fascinating, complex, rich history of Polish Jews in my country, which we should be basically proud of. And we can have a look on that in a very professional manner, visiting Warsaw and visiting in particular Polish Museum in the center of the city. Later, more than 8,000 Polish-born Holocaust survivors immigrated to Australia within the first decade after the war. In general, Australia has welcomed the highest number of Holocaust survivors per capita outside Israel. Many of them, and now also their descendants, which are again here today, are Polish in origin and most settled and live in Melbourne. So no surprise that ASPJ has been established exactly in this beautiful city. Ladies and gentlemen, the German Nazis murdered over 90% of Poland's Jews. It's for us a severe loss and one that we think of with utmost pain still. As for today, and I'm saying this as the representative of the Polish government, we are and we want to be a long-standing guardian of the memory of millions of Jews murdered during the Second World War, primarily in the German Nazi extermination camps in occupied Poland. Let me assure you that we are aware of our obligations as the depository of this memory. From our perspective, obviously, preserving the memory and educating about the Holocaust, and more broadly about crimes against humanity committed by totalitarian regimes, are as important today as they have probably ever been. This applies to Poland, this applies to Australia, this applies to other parts of the world as well. As again, it was indicated by Ezra, we are living in very challenging times for everyone, for nations, for people, for communities. We live also in times of disinformation and misinformation. Narrative very often becomes a tool to fight the enemy. You don't need to have a weapon. Narrative sometimes is sufficient. We all are still very much living with the consequences of Russian aggression against Ukraine and of the 7 October 2023 massacre. In Europe, in the Middle East, in fact in many places in the world, our freedom, peace, security, prosperity are now being openly and directly challenged. But also here in Australia and also here in Melbourne, we can observe with horror actually and disbelief anti-Semitic attacks, sometimes inspired by foreign countries. On a personal note, I have to tell you that I was shocked by the news on the synagogue in Melbourne firebombed a couple of months ago. By seeing Jewish school under threat actually. We had a walk last time with Ezra and he told me stories related to that. I was shocked by news from Sydney, from the Jewish quarter of the city, marked by vandalism and attacks, also putting threats and challenges for my fellow colleagues from the Consulate General in Sydney, which is exactly more or less in this area. We reported such incidents to Warsaw as well, and sadly we had to know that they were not isolated, and they created the sense of unease, of tension, of growing threats, and actually ugly tendencies, even though we have agreed after the Second World War, and we have promised that such tendencies will not be reborn, never, never again. We firmly need to state that no violence motivated by race, nationality, or religion can ever be accepted. With this in mind, also, this year we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War in Europe and the Pacific. On 27 January 2025, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the German Nazi concentration and extermination camp Auschwitz, on the day which right now is United Nations International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Interestingly, Australian and Polish ministers of foreign affairs met in this context in Poland, of course to discuss bilateral issues, security policy issues, but context is very important as well. So it shows that memory is very, very important and we cannot forget about it. Today, sadly but naturally, we are facing a situation in which the generations who directly experience this tragedy, this Holocaust tragedy, are fading away. Luckily, and again it's a personal note, some of them are still in Marmur, and we're in pretty good form, I have to say. When I was here last time, Ezra was so kind to introduce me to Mr. Henry Buch, one of the Holocaust survivors of Polish descent here in Melbourne, who basically was very enthusiastic, contacting me and speaking to me in Polish, much better Polish than Ezra. After so many years, if I may put it this way. So it was a very emotional experience for me, I have to say. I never before had direct experience in having contacts with such outstanding people. Also, due to the Ezra initiative, again, I was very, very deeply moved receiving a video recording from Mr. Bernd Auerbach, another Holocaust survivor, who thanked me in Polish, again, for the birthday wishes we sent to him on his 105th birthday earlier this year. Amazing. I'm saying this just to stress that such stories are a clear testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of faith, memory, and dignity. As survivors of Holocaust, custodians of sacred tradition and witnesses of one of the most tragic chapters in human history, their presence, their experience is a profound blessing and reminder of the values we should never forget. Unfortunately, not many of the younger persons right now will ever be privileged enough to meet Holocaust survivors in person, as I had the honor to have. Therefore, it's our task to educate the next generations. Those who are not adequately familiar with history, those who don't understand it actually, are much more prone to questioning obvious historical facts. And this happens in public domain around the world, also here in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, this leads me to my third point related to the issues of Jewish heritage in Poland, which is also on the agenda of ASPJ. Obviously, today, the Jewish population in contemporary Poland is rather small. There are approximately only 8,500 inhabitants of Jewish origin in my country. But despite this, or maybe in particular in this context, I'm happy to say that we are now observing a revival of Jewish culture and Jewish communities in Poland, and I think it's absolutely great. In Warsaw alone, and let me focus on Warsaw because it's my hometown, there are several religious congregations of Jewish origin, from Orthodox through Progressive to Reform, and even a community of Georgian Jews. You can also see a re-emergence of Jewish schools of different type, kosher restaurants, very popular, especially in the center of the town, and cafeterias. The annual festivals of Jewish culture are taking place. Among them, the well-known Jewish Culture Festival in Kraków and Singers Warsaw Festival, one of the biggest such events in the world. Polin Museum I mentioned about earlier, located close to my home in Warsaw, takes a very important place on the cultural map of the city, not only on the historical map of the city, but also cultural map of the city, but also culinary map of the city, because a restaurant were providing a kind of combination of Polish and Jewish cuisine is absolutely amazing, and I hope you will have opportunity to go over and eat great dishes at some point. Polish government is supporting those and many other activities in order to maintain the memory, culture and heritage of the Jewish people on Polish soil. This is also probably the best way of preserving and maintaining our common Polish-Jewish legacy. A legacy to which a significant part of the Australian Jewish community also belong. And I think this is a very important element of our efforts related to education here in Australia, but also in Poland. When I walk through the streets of Kazimierz in Kraków, which used to be a Jewish quarter of the town, or Muranów in Warsaw, again, it was a Jewish quarter of the town, I often have the reflection that traditions and common history is not something left behind us, but something that still breathes and helps us to function in the future. 1,000 years of Polish-Jewish coexistence left common heritage, but it's sometimes hard to tell one from another. And let me provide you right now with a couple of examples, also personally important for me. Last year I watched with really great interest a Real Pain movie, which was awarded Oscar at some point, presenting quite complex and complicated story of two Americans of Jewish origin who visited Poland on a Jewish heritage tour. But the movie as such presented, again, fascinating picture of complexity of history of Jews in Poland, and presented Poland as a very interesting country worth visiting. Last year, again in cooperation with ASPJ and Ezra, I was honored to join a beautiful concert of Polish-Jewish music performed by the incredible duo of Karolina Mikołajczyk and Iwo Jedenecki. On a bit different perspective, I love Hałka. If I can pronounce it properly, Halach, a braided Sabbath bread cherished in Jewish homes, But to be frank, as a kid, I didn't know it. It was a beloved sweet bread on Polish breakfast tables as well, including in my home. When I'm in Poland, I very often buy it and eat it a lot, actually, with a bit of butter on it. And I'm looking forward, actually, to visiting Poland very, very soon, also because of this nice dish. I'm also sure that you know rosół, a broth, chicken broth. I never cook. I'm not a good chef. But I know that it appears both in Polish and Jewish kitchens. And we, together, it's our legacy, we associate it with warmth and family and treat it as a medicine in first stage of cold, if not for other situations. So I'm saying this just to prove, just to show you that there are many elements of our joint history and traditions that have been lived, shared, tasted, and passed from one family to another. It's a daily expression of coexistence and closeness that continues to this day, and I think this meeting tonight is also a very good example of that. And in Melbourne, meeting descendants of Polish Jews, many of them speak Polish, at least partially, who continue to carry these traditions. I see how strong this heritage remains, even halfway across the globe, down under, totally far away from Poland. And I'm very happy that our meetings, our interactions between us as the embassy, members of community, and in particular our interactions between the embassy and ASPJ can contribute somehow to this process. Keeping this heritage, maintaining this dialogue, enhancing this dialogue, is for me personally and professionally, as a Polish diplomat and as a person born and raised in Warsaw, very, very special responsibility. And this brings me to key reason for our meeting tonight. We have gathered here on the invitation of ASPJ and the Embassy of the Republic of Poland to present unique Polish distinctions, namely the Golden Cross of Merit, awarded by the President of the Republic of Poland on 13 November 2023 to Mr. Bernard Brzegowski-Korbman and Mr. Izydor Marmur for efforts related to the development of Polish-Jewish dialogue here down under. Here I will not be able to provide you with some juicy details. I asked Ezra to do it, but he was diplomatic enough not to do it. But I cannot do it because, and it's shame for me, but I met personally these two outstanding figures for the first time tonight. I regret it, of course, but I'm sure we'll stay in close touch in the future, also on a personal level. But what I wanted to say, that it's a great honor and privilege for me, also personally, to meet you, dear friends. While preparing for tonight's ceremony, I found a long list of their achievements of Bernard and Izydor, aimed at promoting dialogue and developing Polish-Jewish relations. I cannot bring all of them to you. I guess you know even more than me, and Ezra again stole a show from me. But let me refer to a couple of points, and there will be some repetitions because we use the same website. I apologize for that. Let me refer in particular to their leadership within the Australian Society of Polish Jews and their descendants, and their enthusiasm, energy, determination for cooperation with the Polish Community Council of Victoria over recent years. I think it's very important, because it's our joint legacy. Also very shortly, I will recall here a very great initiative to establish, well known to you, and it was described earlier, Henryk Sławik Award. What I can add to what we heard before, that Henryk Sławik was a Polish diplomat who risked his career and life doing utmost to save fellow Jewish friends. And I think it's worth stressing here that he's a very shining example next to other Polish diplomats as well from the period of Second World War, as Aleksander Ładoś, Konstanty Rokicki, Stefan Mniewicz, or Julia Szkul, and some others. I will not go into details on that, it's not part of my oration, but I would like to encourage you to have a look on a recently published book by Roger Morfas, The Forges, exactly about these stories. And I think it's also very important context for Henryk Słowik Award. But let me come back right now to where the aim is of tonight. As far as I know, for 27 years, so pretty long time, Mr. Brzegowski-Korbman as a secondary school teacher and for 7 years as the executive director of the Jewish Holocaust Center, lectured extensively, nationally and internationally on Holocaust education. In the 80s, he was chairman of the World Federation of Polish Jews Australian chapter, which was, as indicated before, a post-war organization that aimed to support Jewish survivors from Poland and preserve their heritage here in Australia. And then ASPJ was established, which was instrumental in strengthening ties between the Jewish and Polish communities in Melbourne, but as we show by our presence also here in Poland. When the ASPJ was formed in 2009, Mr. Izydor Marmur became the liaison of the Polish community and represented ASPJ at various Polish community and joint events. He has also volunteered for the Polish Archives and Museum, and during his visit to Poland he met with members of Polish government and visited a number of institutions on behalf of the ASPJ. And I think it was a very important, critical element of education and promoting our joint cooperation and Polish-Jewish history. These examples are, again, clear illustration of Mr. Brzegowski-Korbman's and Mr. Izydor Marmur's dedication to keeping accurate historical memory while focusing today and in the future on moving forward together. I think this is very important. This mission should be continued, and I'm sure this will be the case, at least as far as Polish Embassy, Polish government, and the ASPJ are concerned. Dialogue is not an event. It's a process. It's a commitment. It requires courage, empathy, and patience. The work of our two outstanding figures, VIPs of tonight, shows that the past can be remembered with dignity, the present can be lived in cooperation, and the future can be shaped through partnership. The example is one that strengthens not only Polish-Jewish relations in Australia, but it constitutes the moral fabric of both of our communities. Therefore, it's my great honor and privilege right now to invite distinguished Mr. Bernard Brzegowski-Korbman and Mr. Izydor Marmur to the stage for the official ceremony. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, my name is Beata Pękala, and now I will read the decision of the President of the Republic of Poland on the awarding of orders and decorations. Decisions of the President of the Republic of Poland of 13 November 2023 on the awarding of orders and decorations. In accordance with Article 138 of the Constitution of the Republic of Poland of 2nd April 1997, and the Act of 16 October 1992 on orders and decorations, and at the request of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the following citizens of the Republic of Poland and of the Commonwealth of Australia are hereby awarded the Gold Cross of Merit for their contributions to the development of Polish-Jewish dialogue. Mr. Bernard Brzegowski-Korbman and Mr. Izydor Marmur. The decision was signed by the President of the Republic of Poland, Andrzej Duda.
subject would be important.
So, here we are. I want to welcome everybody. Dobry wieczór, good evening, Erev Tov. This is a really emotional time for me at the moment, so forgive me if I'm a little bit, find it difficult to talk. Thanks very much for coming, and especially thanks very much to the family and friends, close family and friends that are here tonight. And unfortunately, some of them are not able to be here tonight. Prior to this sort of evening, I was trying to work out what I'm going to be talking about. And then I thought to myself, there is a chain of events, very much accidental, that led me to this point where I am here tonight. So I'll just go through that very quickly, hopefully. If you're bored, just leave. Okay, so I lived in...
I shifted, is it? I wasn't bored, I just wanted to sit.
I was born in Poland, which was not an accident. When I was a little kid, my father told me that I was Jewish. But that really meant very little to me. I was so involved with my Polish friends and running around, getting into all kinds of mischief, that knowledge didn't have any kind of real effect on me. When I was 12 and turned 13 on board the ship, we arrived in Australia, where I went to central school. The beginnings were difficult. For a very short time, somebody tried to bully me, not for being a Jew, but for being a wog. And unfortunately, one of the leaders was a wog himself. His name was Bruno. He didn't bully me for very long, let me tell you. So, at college, years later, I was fortunate enough. I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by very much a multicultural group of friends. Again, being Polish, Jewish, made absolutely no difference. So you can see that being Jewish never played a terribly important part in my life until after I left for Europe. Like many young men after college, took off on a tour of Asia, Europe, that sort of stuff. And I won't go into much detail, except that at one point of time I ran out of money in Turkey.
Not good.
Running out of money in Turkey is not a good idea in the early 70s. Luckily, I had an uncle in Israel. So I jumped on board the ship to Cyprus and then to Haifa, and that's when I met my cousin, who introduced me in turn to her girlfriend, who is now my wife, and a number of other people. So the point is this, that if I didn't run out of money when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't be here tonight. So now I think I should mention a number of people that helped me as a liaison person with the Polish community in my, I would call it success of what we have been doing. So, I've already mentioned our own people, but I said the board members in Melbourne, from too many to mention, because besides the ones we have another 4 or 5, I think. We're also very lucky to have started a branch in Sydney, led by Estelle Rosinski. We now have 4 board members there. And of course now I'd like to mention a few of many Polish friends who were key players from the outset, and without whose efforts a lot of things wouldn't be possible, if at all. Of those, sorry, it's hard to mention the people I'm going to talk about. Krzysztof Lancucki, Marian Pawlik, Andrew Korab, who are no longer with us. We miss them all very much, and me personally, because we've become very, very close friends. Of those who are still with us, George Kozika, Father Wiesław Słowik, who unfortunately couldn't be here, represented by my friend Father Ted, Adam Warzel, who was there with us from the beginning, very grateful for your help. And Lucyna Artemiuk, who I don't think is here unfortunately, but she has been outstanding in her support of what we are doing. Aipa, who was there at the beginning of this whole process of Polish-Jewish relations, and encouraged us and gave us a lot of support in that area. Thank you to the President. You've been an inspiration to us. Also, of course, I must mention the Polish diplomats throughout the years. You know, we've had quite a few who we tend to become friends with everybody. So you can't talk about somebody like Paweł Milewski without warmth. You know, I mean, these people were really, really wonderful supporters of what we are doing, and became really close friends. Introduced us to the diplomatic corps in Poland, which was really wonderful. So, I must also say someone who's been really, really supportive, and is not a Pole or a Jew, is Natalie Suleiman, MP from the Victorian government, who is a Muslim. So you can tell it's a very much a multicultural country we live in, for which I'm very grateful. So I'm humbled and honored to be receiving this award, and thank everybody who nominated me. And thank you, Marcin Kawałowski, for presenting it to me. Thank you very much.
I'd like to start by telling you a little story. When I was young, a Polish family lived next door to me. And like many Polish families, there was Mum, Dad, Piotr, the kid I played with, and the glue of the household, if you like, Babcia. Now Babcia, and they were not Jewish. Babcia was the most amazing woman. I used to prefer going to their place next door so I could eat her cakes and biscuits and not play with Peter. But she was really also very straightforward. And I practiced my broken Polish on her. And I said, Babcia, ja widziałam wesoła dupa, which translate literally as the merry ass. I thought dupa was the word for widow, but obviously I was wrong. And that's where I learnt why I don't try to speak Polish too often, because that's where I learnt the phrase Bernard, ty mówisz po polsku jak Żyd. And I've remembered that. And as I said, not an anti-Semitic bone in her body, but it was just her way of expressing my Polish accent and lack of vocabulary and so on. That's why I wish Nick Wakeling was here in many ways, because what Nick does is when he tries in his tortured Australian accent to say Dzień dobry, like all ethnic groups, there is a word in Yiddish that's kvel. It's a wonderful word. When you kvel, you are overcome with such magnificent positive emotion, totally overcome. You almost reach God with it. And every time Nick says Dzień dobry, Poles kvel. They go up there and they think, oh, well, he's speaking our language well, that's wonderful. And I really like to see that. And so I'm a little disappointed he's not here, because I then like to rubbish him about it afterwards. But the other thing about my youth, I suppose, is that we it's not like we all the way home. I'm trying to put the right words to it. But we try to very much follow this kind of multicultural approach. It's interesting because my parents were from Łódź before the war, and then after the war. I think my father and Izzy's father served in the same Russian Jewish army, the Berlin division. Polish. What would I do without you, baby? Anyway, so, you know, we had that in common as well. But interestingly enough, when I started the Association of Polish Jews, I was asked first if I would take over the Australian chapter of the World Federation of Polish Jews. I said yes. I don't know why, but I said yes. I guess I felt an obligation as the executive director of the Holocaust Museum. But what it did for me was the most wonderful transformation. I can't lie, I was brought up by my parents on an anti-Polish feeling because of their war experiences. Like many Polish Jews, you blame a few, you blame the whole lot for just a few, but because they felt betrayed by some of the Polish people, the whole nation was to blame. And when I took, and I grew up with that prejudice, there's no doubt, I can say that openly. You know, people used to say to me, oh, Brzegowski, you have a Polish background. And I would immediately say, I was born in France, which is where I was born in Paris, and have as little to do as I could to hide with the Polish heritage, you know, tried to hide it. But as with everything, one finds out that past events, past history means very little. It gives you a context, but it shows you that that context can be overcome if it's a negative one. And when I was given the presidency of the Polish Jews and so on, and I started to meet members of the Polish community, it was the warmth by which the community accepted me. And Izzy and I have said this, maybe we shouldn't say it out loud, but we've said it and we both agree with it. We were received with greater warmth and love by the Polish community than we were by our own community, because we wanted to form a bond with the Polish Jews, with the Poles of Melbourne. And we went to different places where Jews feared to tread. We went to sports days, different Dom Polski.
St Patrick's Cathedral. St Patrick's Cathedral. When you were welcome, thank you, Rabbi, for coming.
That's right. I was welcomed as a rabbi for coming, which put off Rabbi Morgan quite a bit, because people just walked past him and they just thanked me as the rabbi. And I love playing the rabbi. I'm a multi-faith rabbi. I'm the rabbi who blesses people. So I even know the words in Latin. As my grandson would say, Veisir. Anyway, so it was that warmth and love and acceptance that the Polish people gave Izzy and I, which made it a pleasure, not just a chore to get closer and have some sort of intellectual, academic, oh gosh, aren't we doing our bit for humanity? But it was the love of the Polish community that really aided everything that we did. And when we went to Poland, Izzy and I had a fantastic time. We met with diplomats, with politicians, some I didn't even know, from an extreme right-wing, what was it, PIN or Pamięta, whatever. Anyway, and we didn't realise that they were supposed to be the bad guys, in a sense. But,
no, not in a sense.
Oh, okay. But what we found, we had only one example of anti-Semitism when we were in Poland. Only one. And it was from a Jew. You remember? It was so funny. We wanted to see something and he wouldn't let us in, and we said, look, we're Jews, we come from Australia, etc. And he basically said, piss off. So, but in Polish. I think he tried to translate that into Yiddish as well. So, I'll cut it short now, but I just wanted to say that, again, I thank you for the honour. I thank the Polish community of Melbourne for their warmth, their love, and their understanding, for making Izzy and I feel as we are part of the community. I'm saddened that Father Sławik can't be here tonight, and I pray that he has a quick recovery. I am so pleased to see the man I call my father confessor, Father Ted, over here.
What have you got to confess about?
If you don't understand that, you've got problems. Again, thank you to you all, and once again, I appreciate the honour of tonight, and it's something I will cherish till my last breath. Thank you.